大家好，我是 Kiko。今天我想跟大家分享一下我的商务英语学习过程。我的老师是 Gary Easy， 美国工商管理硕士。今天的主要内容是讲 Understanding Culture and Language， 也就是学习文化和语言。由于语言和文化背景的不同，我们常常无法准确了解外国人想要表达的意思，往往造成不必要的损失和误会，特别是在今天金融危机的情况下，所以我们一定要学习外国的文化。如果今天你在工作中或生活中遇有同样的问题，欢迎你来跟我一起学习。
In order to effectively communicate with native English speakers, in order to effectively sell products to native English speakers, in order to truly understand your Western bosses and colleagues, it is very important to understand one thing. It is our culture that determines how we send, how we understand, and how we respond to messages. Again, let me repeat that. It is our culture that determines how we send, how we understand, and how we respond to messages. For example, if I say the same thing to 5 different people from 5 different cultures, I can expect them to understand me differently. And I can expect 5 different responses because their culture is different. Let me show you what I mean. If we have 2 people that want to communicate, over here we have the sender who wants to send a message to the receiver. The sender will use his or her own culture to encode the message. The sender will use his or her own culture to encode the message. And then the receiver will use his or her own culture to decode the message. So the way that the sender sends the message will depend on his or her culture, and the way the receiver understands the message will depend on his or her own culture. Then the receiver will provide feedback or a response based on his or her culture. This is the basic communication model. In order for this to succeed, the sender and the receiver must understand each other's culture, or they will be encoding and decoding messages differently. For example, when I'm in China, sometimes I try to speak to people, but they don't understand English and I don't understand Chinese. Sometimes I ask someone a question, like, can you tell me what time it is? They don't understand me, so sometimes they smile. Maybe they're trying to be polite. I don't know, it's Chinese culture. But in Western culture, we smile when something is funny, when we're laughing at someone. So in fact, it makes me angry. I say, why are you laughing? This isn't funny. That person sees I'm angry and they smile more. So not understanding the culture makes us have this communication problem. This cultural difference causes a problem. In order to effectively communicate with native English speakers, in order to successfully sell products to native English speakers, in order to truly understand your Western bosses and colleagues, you must understand their culture. So where does culture come from? Culture comes from many places. For example, culture can come from our education. Culture also comes from knowledge. Culture can come from our values, the things that are important to us. Culture can also come from religion or beliefs. Culture can even come from our possessions, the possessions of a country. For example, the Great Wall here in China. The teachings of Kongzi are very important to the culture of China. The Great Pyramids are very important to the culture of Egypt. The values of individuality and self-sufficiency are very important to American culture. So it is our culture that determines how we send, how we understand, and how we respond to messages. So, I want to spend the rest of class today talking about the cultural differences between China and the West, and how these differences affect our communication. Any questions before we get started?